The video begins with the text PR Plus presents in pink on a yellow background. In this video, Aprupa, a sexuality educator and gender and queer rights advocate, speaks to us about consent, boundaries, and how to establish boundaries for oneself.
Hello, my name is Aprupa. My pronouns are she and they. I'm a sexuality educator and I'm a queer and disability rights advocate. Today, we're going to discuss consent. Consent is different from permission in that it's not just something that you give and take. It's not something that a person in a position of authority or power grants you. Consent is actually a way of life. It is a practice through which we respect a person's autonomy over their own body, identity, and property, irrespective of a person's age, gender, sexual orientation, disability, so on and so forth. And often with folks with disabilities, our boundaries are not respected. We are infantilized. For example, our wheelchairs or our canes and other mobility aids are touched without consent, and that is not okay. There is a pressing need for a conversation on what consent can look like on different bodies and different identities. Consent is not just something that is practiced in sexual situations or in a romantic relationship, and that is the context in which we often hear of consent. Consent is something that is to be practiced in social situations as well. For instance, I just mentioned wheelchairs and mobility aids. Consent is also something that you're supposed to ask for, let's say, before posting someone's picture on social media. Even a child, before you hug them, you're supposed to take their consent. And consent can be very simple, straightforward, verbal, in that no means no, yes means yes, maybe means no. But it can also be in the finer details. A person may not always be comfortable to say no, and they may resort to saying something like, too tired today, or maybe some other time, feeling a bit drunk. So important for us to stay connected with our own bodies, and also be aware of the cues that the other person may exhibiting, which, like I pointed out, could be verbal but could also be non-verbal. A person may not make eye contact or may make excessive eye contact. They may flinch a certain way. Their body and their behavior may change a certain way. And this is something that folks with certain types of disabilities may miss. For example, a person with visual disabilities, a blind person, may not be able to see that a person's body language has changed. They may be saying something, right? A person who's on the spectrum, like me, may not be able to perceive a change in tone or perceive certain social cues that come easily for neurotypical people. So what really works in this situation is to over communicate, is to keep talking, and to always err in the side of caution. It's okay to ask the same question twice and even thrice. It may be a bit of an annoyance, but please ensure that you are making the effort to seek consent of the other person. Now, a very easy way for you to remember consent could be through the acronym FRIES. So in FRIES, F stands for freely given. So consent is something that a person is supposed to give without any force, without any pressure. So if someone is, convincing you, if someone is threatening to leave the relationship, or if someone, keeps begging for something, and is not letting you go, then it's in fact not freely given. So it's in fact not consensual. R stands for reversible. So at any point, even after you've said yes, even after maybe the both of you, you and your partner are kissing, and you've said yes to sex, you can retract your consent at any point. It is reversible. I stands for informed, which means you deserve the right to all information that will enable you to make this decision. So if someone is saying that they love you and they want to be in a relationship with you, and they sort of get your consent based on that premise, and later you find out that that's not true, then it's in fact not informed consent. Or if someone doesn't reveal their STI status to you, you deserve the right to that information and then make a decision, which is when it will count as consent. E stands for enthusiastic. Now, enthusiasm can look different in different people. For someone like me who's a bit of an enthucutlet, it can look very obviously enthusiastic, but not everybody, not for everybody. Whatever enthusiasm looks like for you, right? And S stands for specific. So, like I was saying before, it is, let's say you were to give consent for kissing. It doesn't mean you've given consent for sex. Let's say you've given consent for sex. It doesn't mean you've given consent for cuddling, so on and so forth. So, very easy way for you to remember the nitty-gritties of consent. Now, another thing that we really need to do away with is that men always want sex, women never want sex, people with like disabilities aren't worthy or deserving of desire and love and affection. All these things are not true. They're hocus pocus, and we have to absolutely reject them. Like I was saying before, we need to connect with our bodies in a manner that feels safe to us, of course. See how our body is responding to certain types of touches, certain expressions, certain interactions, and be able to say no and practice saying no again in social situations so that it can translate into sexual situations as well. Having said this, I also want to acknowledge that folks with disabilities may find themselves vulnerable, when it comes to saying no, because we are taught to just accept any scrap of attention and affection that is thrown at us. We are taught to be grateful that someone even likes us and wants to engage with us, and we may find saying no all the more difficult. But please remember that you're worthy and deserving of love and sex and orgasms and all those good things. Now, one last thing that I really want to bring up is, let's say your consent were to be violated at any point. It is never your fault. Whether or not you said no, whether or not you felt comfortable to express how you were feeling, it is never ever your fault. It's always the fault of the perpetrator. And if you feel comfortable, please report. If not, approach this in a manner that is meaningful to you. Please speak with somebody. Please seek mental health help, because it is traumatic when consent is violated, and it's never ever your fault. Please remember that.
This video ends with two logos on a yellow background. The first one is a pink heart and a plus sign and has Pyar Plus written underneath. And the second one is a green and black eye and has point of view written next to it.